I started with Exodus was I wanted something else to fulfill my time with. I was in,
We are making gimat batatas. This is Sudanese dish. In our culture, being friend, you are part of our family. Join us in a meal time, celebration time.
The first thing we ever did was talk about what we like to eat, don't like to eat, do you like to cook, what do you cook? And it was an opening of the door to kind of say, what do we have in common, what don't we have in common?
I can learn from her culture and she can learn from my culture.
And we've learned a lot from each other.
Yes. Hello.
Welcome to the Celebration of Hope.
We're so glad you're joining us for Celebration of Hope. Before we dive in, we want to pause and reflect on the current global refugee crisis.
Like all of you, our hearts break for every life uprooted, every fleeing family, every refugee seeking safety. Conflicts in Afghanistan and now Ukraine have created millions of new refugees amidst what was already one of the largest humanitarian crises of our time.
Exodus World Service stands ready to welcome refugees from all countries through the U.S. Refugee Resettlement Program, as we have for 34 years.
Please join some of our Exodus friends as we lift up refugees around the world in prayer.
God of the refugee, to you all lives are known and every journey is seen.
Strengthen each refugee in fleeing and in waiting by your mercy.
Every route being guarded and every safe passage made in your loving kindness.
Fill us with anticipation for a day with no more violence and displacement.
That we may be bearers of hope in your sacred work to welcome the stranger. Amen.
I'm honored to welcome all of you to the Celebration of Hope. I'm Sean Frick, a volunteer with Exodus.
And I'm Park Kim, an Exodus staff member and a former refugee myself. We will be your guides this evening.
You're joining with many others from around Chicagoland and the country.
This evening, you'll hear stories from refugees, volunteers, and staff about the welcome we offer through our many programs.
I know that for me, over the past 5 years, my life has been enriched by the friendships I've formed with refugees I've met, thanks to Exodus.
As a refugee who arrived in the U.S. when I was 12, I can say that those welcoming faces and friendships meant the world to my family. I'll share more about my story later, but for now, let's jump in and learn about the mission of Exodus.
A real big spiritual and important part of my life is to be a welcoming person. All God's children, are welcome. And my need was there to connect with other people coming from different countries. I didn't know how to do it. It would have just been chance if I would have met some person that was from another country that we could help. Exodus, they provided that for me.
Exodus's mission is to mobilize the Christian community to welcome and befriend refugees. We do this through educating the Chicagoland community about the journey of refugees on their way to Chicagoland, and then we also connect people with practical service opportunities to refugees and ultimately empower them to become champions for refugees.
Refugees are people just like you and me, but they've been forced to flee their country due to war or persecution. Their leaving is often sudden, it's unplanned. They don't want to leave everything behind. They want to return home, but they can't.
Exodus knows our volunteer community very well, and we know our refugee community very well. So it makes sense for us to be that bridge who can train volunteers and then also connect them with refugees and be with them along the way to navigate those relationships.
It's just been really life-changing experience and wonderful because of what the people at Exodus do.
when you ask refugees what they need, they'll tell you practical resources. Exodus is able to serve refugees by providing those things like food and household items, but also they'll say that they want a friend, they want companionship. Those relationships actually create a web that grounds refugees to their new landscape.
What are we in America if we don't welcome people just like they welcomed our grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth? What kind of country are we if we don't do that? I want to be able to make an impact. Exodus provided that because there's a real need.
We have a night of impactful stories ahead, and Par and I will be here with you along the way to share more details.
Tonight, we'll also ask for your support to continue our important mission. You don't have to wait until the end of the program to partner with us. You can give anytime by going to exodusworldservice.org/give or text COH 2022 to 44321.
Now we want to introduce you to a young woman you'll hear from throughout this evening, Ola.
My refugee journey was really hard for me, for my family. We left Syria because of the war, because our home in Syria destroyed. We came from Syria to Jordan walking. I was 8 years old. We stayed in Jordan for 5 years. I didn't feel like we are welcome in Jordan. We faced a lot of racism. Imagine yourself, you are in a new country and you don't know what is in this country, and you don't know what's the language in this country, and it's hard to you to communicate or to understand people. So you're gonna feel confused, you're gonna feel depressed, you're gonna feel every bad feeling in the world. All of this and the people not welcomed you. It's really hard. Everything changed when I came here.
Ola's family fled the Syrian war, but there's so many crises happening globally right now. In fact, we're in the midst of the largest refugee crisis of our time. We're seeing that play out in real time right here in Chicagoland. We are welcoming record numbers of refugees.
In times of crisis also come times of great compassion. We are so grateful for the way Exodus volunteers have stepped up in this historic season of welcome.
We asked our staff to reflect a little more deeply on the concept of welcome.
Welcoming is really a beautiful thing.
Welcome should be very, very simple.
Sharing a meal or a warm drink with someone and actually actively listening to someone's story.
Put on a smile.
Welcome means to invite in, to make someone feel at home, to make someone feel that they belong, that they have a seat at the table.
It's important to welcome everyone, just as an act of seeing each person as valuable and important.
Everyone knows what it feels like to feel like an outsider, whether you're moving to a new city, to a new job, even a new church. And it's so relieving when someone comes up to you and welcomes you and makes you feel like you belong there.
I've actually learned the most about welcome from my refugee friends.
When we entered into their home, we were just unloading all of the different welcome pack items, and they really didn't have anything in their apartment, yet they set out all these different snacks, the only snacks and food items that they had, to really make sure that we felt welcomed. And then they started unpacking the welcome pack items and took out mugs and the tea kettle because they wanted to make sure that we had tea. And so I felt so incredibly welcomed by them, even though they had so little, but they made us feel really loved.
Just 2 weeks after I met them, they found out that I was about to have a birthday. And so they walked 40 minutes to buy a cake for me. They bought balloons and made so much food. And I walked into their home and they had candles lit and they were playing their favorite music and just had this entire birthday party spread set out for me. And I felt so welcomed, not just into that space and into that party and into their home, but also into their family and into a deeper friendship with them. If you have a heart that's open to welcome, then when someone comes into your life, you just extend the welcome that we've seen given to us. As a Christian, I have learned through Scripture that Jesus welcomed me no matter where I was at, and I can extend that same welcome to refugees and anyone else God puts in my path.
Around the world, families are fleeing conflict. I'm sure you watched the news last August about Afghanistan and the mass evacuation of people after the Taliban took control.
Exodus volunteers welcomed Afghan families arriving in our city. Their trauma is so fresh. There is still much danger for their friends and family who remain in Afghanistan.
I am a new neighbor volunteer with Exodus World Service, and I am currently partnered with 2 families who were evacuated from Afghanistan this past summer. Both families have left family members in Afghanistan, so for their safety, Exodus keeps all their personal information confidential.
Everything fell apart. No one could have imagined that this would happen like this.
Even if I couldn't come to the US, I had to leave my country because my life was in danger.
We brought only a bag of essentials. Everything else was left behind.
Sometimes you feel so powerless when you see the struggle of families that are, forced to relocate and leave their countries, and you don't know how you can help. And this is just a wonderful opportunity and something that I can do, just me, just a regular person who doesn't have any specific skill to offer even, but has a little time and a heart for what these families might be going through.
We are really thankful from our hearts to the volunteers and the US government.
I'm grateful, thankful that all these people are helping us. We feel that they're being very kind to us as human beings.
We are very happy that Miss Megan keeps contacting us.
In Afghanistan, it was my job to safeguard American advisors. Whenever they went to meet Afghan government officials or go to different places, myself and my colleagues, my Afghan colleagues, it was our job to escort and safeguard these people. Even during the time when the government in Afghanistan was in a stable state, we were constantly getting threats by phone call, personally directed at my family, about the work that we were doing with the foreigners. We're just happy that we don't have to face any of that anymore. We're grateful for that.
I really appreciate the help. In every situation, people contact us and help us out. They are good friends and advisors to us. They help us process living in the US. Now that I am living in the US, I want to be an effective person in society and work here. Here, I have hope.
We all want the same things for our families and for ourselves. We want, peace, safety. We want to be able to feed our families, to have safe homes, safe schools for our kids. And even though our lives are very different, you find when you spend time with someone and get to know them that we really are not that different. And so that has been a huge blessing for me as well.
Par, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your refugee journey.
Sure. So my family is from Burma. Burma is a Buddhist country and my family is Christian. So we face a lot of religious persecution and my parents think it was no longer safe for my brother and I to live there anymore. So we fled to Malaysia.
And how old were you when you fled?
I was 9 years old.
And how was it living in Malaysia?
So living in Malaysia was really hard because we had to hide from the police all the time. They could arrest us whenever they wanted to. I went to a refugee school there, but the quality was bad, and I didn't learn much. We started the process of resettlement, which took a lot of paperwork and interviews. It took us a long time. But 3 years later, in 2013, we got the news that we would be resettled in Carol Stream, Illinois. Volunteers were there to welcome us on our very first day.
Cool. I'm so glad that you were welcome, especially at such a difficult time when you were a child.
Right, yeah. And now working for Exodus, I am so grateful that there are staff as supporters of refugees. And in this historic time of refugee arrivals, that work is even more important.
Yeah. She's being such a good tutor and friend. Right now I feel like she's part of my family too. I'm so proud of her and I'm so happy what she's doing with me.
Maybe this is the start of a tradition.
Taja's cooking. We'll start a podcast or something.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be on YouTube.
Now we're done.
Now
Just
we're done.
turn off.
Yep, that's off. Very
And
good.
that's it.
That is it.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
No, just taste it, guys.
Making a meal together, it was a lot of fun. I think it's something that should be a constant in Exodus going forward. I mean, to get people to communicate and understand and learn. I wrote down the recipe. I'll be making it.
You're gonna try making it.
I will, and I'll bring it over. It won't be as good as yours.
Just eat it. Just show me.
To show you on
Not
camera,
now.
don't
Yeah.
bring it over.
We are in the midst of a historic time. Exodus World Service will welcome more newly arrived refugees this year than at any other time in our 34-year history. As U.S. policies have become more favorable, the opportunities to welcome newly resettled refugees are immense. At the same time, the U.S. resettled unprecedented numbers of Afghans who were forced to flee their homeland. In 2021, Exodus volunteers welcomed fewer than 200 newly arrived refugees. This year, so far, we've welcomed more than 650 refugees and evacuees, already triple last year's numbers. People are fleeing violence, war, and persecution. According to the United Nations, we are in the midst of the fastest growing refugee crisis since World War II. Currently, there are over 26 million refugees around the world. People are fleeing from both relatively newer crises in Ukraine and Afghanistan and ongoing conflicts in countries like the Congo, Syria, Eritrea, Sudan, Burma, and others. Since Exodus' founding in 1988, it's been our privilege to welcome over 50,000 refugees from 40 countries through over 84,000 volunteers. Nearly 100,000 individuals have learned about refugees through Exodus education events. In 2021, through our many programs that serve refugees, over 3,200 Exodus volunteers walked alongside more than 13,000 refugees, wherever they were in their journey. Another 4,750 individuals learned about refugees through our education events. We look forward to what we will accomplish together in this unprecedented year. To our thousands of volunteers, our partners, including 207 churches, 13 universities, 27 community organizations, and over 240 prayer partners, thank you for your steadfast support of our refugee friends and neighbors during this historic time.
I'm so grateful that Exodus was able to be a part of just this historic season of welcome.
Things have been like overwhelming.
There was so much need to fill. It became all hands on deck.
The last 6 months of resettlement has been a whirlwind, in a good and in a somber way. Really good that volunteers have stepped up to welcome this influx of Afghan evacuees, but also somber because we are welcoming refugees.
Once the refugee cap was raised, we were expecting many refugees to start coming, but we did not expect what happened in August. We started getting inundated with calls.
I'll be talking to my coworkers and we'll realize we need 3 ethnic grocery care packs for the very next day. And then that same day, I would get a call from a church that we had never talked to, that we had never interacted with, but they found out about us online or they found out from another church partner, and they called us and said, we want to help. We want to deliver ethnic grocery care packs, and yes, we can do it this week. So it just felt like it was continuously, week after week, an answer to prayer.
It's really important that we're welcoming people well, and so we will pivot in whatever ways that we need to in order to ensure that every family is welcomed.
We have been doing more trainings, and the number of people attending our trainings has increased tremendously.
These last 6 months, volunteers have stepped up.
Short notice, morning, afternoon, late evening.
The day before Thanksgiving, we started with 5 requests from agencies, and by the end of the day, we had delivered 10 welcome packs. Volunteers were ready to go and ready to welcome refugees. Typically, there's a moratorium on arrivals during the week of Christmas to New Year's. This past Christmas to New Year's, we had 6 arrivals that we did welcome packs for. And again, volunteers, they answered the call and they delivered those welcome packs.
Something about Exodus is that we are very good at seeing need and filling gaps. So we saw that there were families in hotels who didn't have activities for their children. We started what we're calling a kids club, and it's very fun to see families come to this space and meet with college students and just have a great time just being kids again.
We have never sat back and said no. No, today we will not deliver to that one, today we won't do this, today we won't do that. Yeah, so we just keep doing what we have to do.
Even with the sheer number of refugees that arrived, we were able to welcome, and I believe we were able to welcome well.
While we hold space for the sadness, heartbreak, and trauma that comes with fleeing, we celebrate the joy that comes with welcoming refugees to our community.
In my experience as a volunteer, providing practical and tangible resources that refugees need when they arrive in Chicagoland, like groceries and household items, is an incredible way to offer welcome.
This winter, a family arrived from Burma, and Exodus volunteers Roger, Devin, and Carol were able to collect a Welcome to America pack, set up their apartment, and welcome the whole family.
We're in Northbrook, Illinois at the Village Presbyterian Church. Our church has partnered with Exodus for over 20 years.
Everything in there, yep. Today, my church is delivering its 6th refugee package since Thanksgiving.
The Welcome to America pack is a pack that contains most of the items that you would like to have in an apartment or your house. It contains things like from the bathroom, from the kitchen, things that can be put in the sitting room, dining, everything.
Here's some light bulbs.
Tomorrow, a nice family is coming.
They come from Burma.
It's got to be so hard. I mean, when you think of fleeing your home, what could be worse, right? You know, we've heard so much about refugees and all that they have to go through, and you try to be empathetic, but we just can't realize the whole thing, you know? And I'm just so thrilled that they have gone from where they are to here, and I'm glad we could have this small part in it.
So yeah, here's something that I brought too for the 8-month-old.
It lets you kind of interact with the other people at your church on a different level. So like for this project, we could have kids that would make signs, we could have an elderly senior group fulfill a pack list.
That first morning I wake up, if I'm used to having a cup of coffee or or a cup of tea. Man, if I could do that in my own kitchen, then it's the starting to get acclimated.
Well, the scriptures make it so clear we need to be welcoming to the stranger, and this is a huge part of what it means to be a Christian in our world today. And in this world that's so filled with divisions, to be filled with hospitality and generosity instead is so important, so key.
By the time the family arrives, they find the apartment already set up. That is a Welcome to America Park.
We are in Rogers Park, and we are going to meet the family that came from Burma, and we set up their apartment before they arrived, and now we're going to meet them. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
My name's Devin. It's nice to meet you. So you're the mom? We got these for the baby, and
It's just better if you get to meet them, greet them, extend one more welcome to them.
next Monday you're going to start school here. Okay. See? They need people to know they're welcome.
We still have VN. We say, we gotta say VN.
Welcoming refugees is only the beginning of the ways we can walk alongside them.
Through our new neighbor program, volunteers can help refugees practice their English, prepare for citizenship, or help youth with homework.
Ola from earlier in the program was starting to tell us how everything had changed for her when she arrived in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Let's check in and see how her new relationships helped transform her life.
Everything changed when I came here. When I came here, I felt that that's the country I belong to. And when I saw Gail and the people from the church and the way that they welcomed us, I felt I'm home again. After Gail, Brenda came. My friendship with Brenda is the best ever. When I saw her for the first time, she's so friendly and kind. So after that, we always hang out. She showed me almost all Chicago. And she loves my family. Always my mom make food for her, and she loved it. She said, "This is the best food ever, but don't tell my mom." When we came here, when I saw how American people, very welcome, very nice. They are really a nice people. For the first time in my life after the Syria war, I felt like in this land, people appreciate you.
Par, when you arrived, who welcomed you and your family to the U.S.?
Well, at first we were scared because it was a brand new country and we were worried about being lonely. But when we got to our new apartment, everything was beautifully set up and there was food there too. As soon as I arrived, I felt like home. I felt welcomed. I arrived in May, so I couldn't go to school right away. But we had volunteers that come to our apartment every week. The volunteers had children around my age, so we would hang out all the time. And I remember one time they took us to a parade in Chicago, and we just became really close friends since then. When I think back on that time, what made me feel most welcome was the way these neighbors and friends just included us in their lives. It helped me feel like I was part of a community.
It's so great to hear that you had people that were there to make you feel at home. Mm-hmm. And I agree with what you said about being present and how it can make all the difference. Mm-hmm. In my time as a new neighbor volunteer, I loved to practice English with my family and that I was paired with and watch their skills grow over time.
Mm-hmm. At Exodus, we love to share the stories of refugee and volunteers' friendships. Here is the story of John, Audrey, and Ali.
I am a refugee because there was a war between Iraq and Iran. Me and my sister and her family, we all went to Indonesia. We registered in the UNHCR process and we waited for 8 years. But we got separated. I'm here and my sister is still there with her kids. And it's been like, when we first got there, like her first son was 10 years old and now he's 18. It's not a good situation over there. When I finally got here, it was like, very excited after a long wait. I got here June 2nd, 2021.
June of last year. That's so crazy.
It feels like we met him like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When I got here, I didn't know anybody, and I thought like, I need like friends, and I need someone to connect with. It's not that easy, especially like it's a new country, you're not used to the culture. The first time they came to my apartment, and I was excited. We got to know each other a little bit.
And we talk about movies. That's where we connected a lot. We realized we all like movies a lot.
Yeah, and Marvel superheroes.
Oh yeah.
And ever since, we just clicked off.
Guys, like the saffron and pistachio.
Right after we left, we had actually talked about like how we could see this being like a lifelong friendship.
It's been amazing.
We went to see the Bean, when we first got here, to the lake.
We had donuts.
We had donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. We went to played volleyball every Monday for like a little while over the summer.
Play with the doggies, go outside, go on walks.
I learned a lot about how we're all the same.
And also how different we can be.
How fast someone can become a part of your family.
I've been away from my family for a long time, but now that I know like John and Audrey, I feel like, I have a family here.
We're a family where nobody shares blood, but we all love each other and care about each other.
I would encourage other people to help also, because at least for like the first year when they get here, refugees, they really need help. They really need help to at least just to know someone, just to communicate, just to be around people.
How is your cactus?
Oh, it's good.
Jesus was all about love and relationships, and this is a great way to make that a reality in your life.
It's just being a friend, just
I
listening.
think just being present.
Yeah, being in the moment, and it grows from there.
Par, now that you've been in the U.S. for several years, tell us a little bit about your life.
Sure. I'm a full-time student at Aurora University studying social work. I also work at School District 200 and with Exodus. I love to help Burmese parents with translation and help their children adjust to school in America.
That's fantastic. We can't wait to see what you accomplish. Now let's hear from some words from Exodus donors and partners about why they support Exodus World Service.
I think a lot about the way that Jesus took care of those in need and the people that may have been forgotten or easily overlooked. When I see the news and I see all of the disruption going on worldwide, it gives me a sense of peace to know that I'm helping in some small way.
Right now, this stage of life, for whatever reason, I just don't have the time to be volunteering in person myself, but I've got some extra money lying around, and I want it to go to something that's important and that matters to me.
Once you see what the program's all about, the value becomes very evident.
We don't have to do it alone. We can do it together, and it in the end it does make an impact. There are families like us, there are children like us, and they are God creation as well.
We're called to love each other in this way, and Exodus really facilitates that for us, makes it easy, takes the pressure off.
But it helps me come alongside people who really are in a very great need. They don't have a home. That's a very scary place to be. And so it helps me to love my neighbors in a way that Jesus asks us to love our neighbors.
Just all that kind of adds up for me is like, why wouldn't I help in some way if I can?
Let's check in with Ola one more time to hear about her plans for the future.
Then you'll hear from our Executive Director, Susan, followed by our Director of Donor Engagement, Katie, about how you can partner with Exodus.
In this land, people appreciate you. I love school now. I made friends. I enjoy my time. I have straight A all the time. My hobby is skincare and makeup, cosmetology. So I saw my friends or my family or everybody around me ask me about skin products and everything about skin. So I saw myself, I know everything. Why I don't go to this career in college? I built all my dream in this country. Since I in the United States, that's enough to give me hope to complete my future and reach my dreams. I know I will reach them. Because of them, I felt there's somebody beside me to help me, to support me. Because of them, I felt I'm not alone.
Have you ever gotten to see a behind-the-scenes look at something? You know, when you get to see what something is like from the inside? Usually it reveals that the full story is more complex. You've just seen heartwarming stories of welcome and friendship between refugees and Exodus volunteers. These stories are short. A behind-the-scenes look at their full stories would show many ups and downs. Arriving in the U.S. does not mean that life is suddenly easy. You may lack the language skills to help your child with homework, or your education didn't transfer to the U.S., so to make ends meet, you work 3 jobs. All this, and you live with the trauma of leaving family members behind, not knowing if you'll ever see them again. The full story would also show all the moments that a volunteer connection meant hands that offered practical aid, a shoulder to lean on, a heart that grieved losses together. Right now, we're facing an enormous challenge. Global conflicts are creating new refugees at a fast pace. Current U.S. policies mean that more refugees will be invited to our country in 2022 than in recent years. Exodus expects to welcome more newly arriving refugees to Chicagoland this year than at any time in our 34-year history. Already, every one of our programs has a waiting list. Refugees who are waiting, asking for a volunteer's help as they rebuild their lives. Tonight, I'm inviting you to step into the story. It's really an epic story of God's hospitality, generosity, and grace extended to each of us that we now have an opportunity to extend to others. You and I may not be able to end the conflicts that create refugees, but we can help those who have been affected by them. Together, we can offer welcome. We can help refugees build new skills and new friendships that create hope for a new future. With a gift tonight, you'll help us mobilize the volunteers who set up apartments, support the neighbors who befriend refugees, train the mentors who help refugee kids with their schoolwork, equip the tutors who teach about U.S. history, helping refugees on the path to become U.S. citizens. We hope to connect over 14,000 refugees with supportive volunteers this year. That is a 600% increase from just a few years ago. It is our largest goal ever, but we're stepping out in faith because the need is big. For Exodus to train, equip, and walk beside volunteers as they walk beside refugees, our goal is to raise over $300,000 to help us reach our annual budget of just over $1 million. Just last week, Exodus volunteers welcomed refugees from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Uganda as they started their lives over. More who need help are on the way. Will you please step into a refugee story by partnering with us tonight? Katie will share how easy it is to give right now to help refugees. Katie?
Thanks, Susan. As you just learned, every gift mobilizes the Christian community to welcome and befriend refugees. I ask you to please give generously tonight. You can give right now by going to exodusworldservice.org/give or texting COH 2022 to 44321. We need to raise at least $300,000 to accomplish our goals for this year. We are 100% funded by partners like you. And great news, we have a way for you to double your impact. A group of Exodus friends has committed to a generous match opportunity. Every gift of $600 or more, or every first-time gift of any amount, will be matched up to $100,000. This includes monthly gifts of $50 or more. Monthly giving provides stability to our ministry. I encourage you to consider this option. Don't miss this opportunity to help more refugees. Whether you are a longtime supporter or this is your first gift, we are grateful for you and your partnership and honored that you are part of the Exodus family. Again, just go to exodusworldservice.org/give or text COH 2022 to 44321, or you can mail your gift to the address on the screen. As you have heard tonight, the opportunities to care for our refugee neighbors are growing. That's why this is our biggest Celebration of Hope goal ever. Together, let's do all we can to serve as many refugees as possible in this historic season of welcome. Gifts of all sizes are needed and greatly appreciated. After you've made your gift, please hang on. We still have a special ending for you.
We're at the end of our program now. We want to say a big thank you to our refugee and volunteer friends who are part of the program tonight. And thank you, Par, for sharing a little bit about your journey.
Exodus exists to equip and support our incredible base of volunteers like you, Sean. Thanks for your service.
And to everyone who joined us, thank you. We hope you learned something new and your hearts were moved. Thank you for generously investing in the lives of refugees. Thank you for being a champion for refugees.
Before we go, let's hear from our chefs, Donna and Hajar, one more time.
Really nice. It really is good. And I will be back for the rest of it.
I'm gonna thank her so much for doing this with me.
Cumin and coriander, black pepper,
In the end,
salt. You have to add it in the end.
Thank you for her, to accept me to be the student. She helped me with speaking and reading. That's really big things for me. Thank you so much, Dana.
And she's taught me so much. I mean, about your culture, your life, and I'm in awe of you. Thank you. So, I mean, we've grown together, and I think we have a lifelong friendship, and I hope it's not even a hope. I can't
Real.
wait. It's real. It's
Okay,
going to
real.
happen. I'm going to get to see all these lovely children grow up. And, so. Thank you
for coming to the celebration of hope. That's enough, right?
She's burnt out.
until like a month before I got here. I was in Indonesia, and 1 month before I got here, hey.
She's so happy. I love it. I love it. Yes! Oh! Yay! Yay! No, they're starting to get it all. Yay! Utensil and
Okay.
it looks really, really, really good.